over on.
I want to offer a toast to Charles B. Hammond, one of the great human beings that lived in this world with us and was a dear friend.
You're here. You're here. It's a Charles.
I'll drink to that.
Oh, we'll get one there too.
Who did this beautiful flower arrangement?
Isn't it pretty?
That's gorgeous.
Floral Dimensions.
Yep. Looks like their work.
Yeah.
That's the one right next to him.
That's my next
Well, I
one.
told him he loved roses.
She asked for a rose garden, and that's the
I
rose
told
garden.
her Floral Dimensions that he loved, Charlie loved
So
roses. And Chuck sent me a beautiful bouquet of roses. Chuck and Ann and the kids sent me a beautiful bouquet of roses.
Really?
That's so nice.
Some of them. Aren't they as pretty as you've ever seen them? It's just beautiful. I know you would have your dinner tonight, so I thought I would catch you during the day. I just wanted to let you know that I was thinking about you and Dad. If I don't talk to you before, I know your dinner. I hope your dinner is a great celebration of Dad and the things he accomplished. He was indeed a great man. Now, if your son could say that about you, I'd say you did all right. You know? And Chuck has such a way of saying exactly what he means.
You know what?
I know.
I know too.
Listen to Daddy and
Peggy, he and Charlie had a wonderful, they gigged each other about everything, you know. They really went after each other. I loved it.
They did have a good, and they were so different.
Yeah, I know.
In so many ways, they were
Yes,
so
thank you.
different, and yet they so respected and loved each other. It was an interesting.
No, Peggy, they really bonded, I think, on the restoration of the MG.
Caesar salad.
Yeah.
All those hours they spent at night.
But, you know, Jim, things that people don't know about that when they did that MG is how Chuck's friends would come around, and it was practically coming to the door to me and saying, Miss Hammond, can Dr. Hammond come out and play? I mean, that's really, and I'd say, yeah, he'll be. And they would all head to the basement, and they would work and have it, you know, and those kids, anything they did to their cars, they wanted Charlie to see. They would bring it back, and he would go out and ooh and ah over it and everything. But it was, and sometimes Chuck wasn't even there. Sometimes it was Chuck and the boys, you know. And they really weren't that interested. I mean, they were interested in their cars, but they really wanted to be with Charlie. And it was a good thing to watch them, and of course Charlie loved it. And he would go, and Charlie knew less about cars probably than I do, and that's nothing. But he would read if he needed to find out something. He would do it, and those kids were just always there.
You remember his best friend, Will Harlan?
Oh, yeah.
Well, when we moved to Asheville, I had my first colonoscopy, and I walked in there, and this kid comes out and says, "Hey, Miss Henderson, I'm Will."
So you're married.
It was Will Harlan, and I'd known him as a kid.
Well,
Some pepper, okay?
Salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper.
but yeah, Will was one of the ones that was all. Will drove his old BMW, and I said, oh, not even just a couple, 3 years, into our basement on a Friday afternoon. They delivered a new engine for his BMW Friday afternoon, and he was there and worked on that MG, put a new engine in it, and drove it out Monday.
I've got some wine coming out.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it really, and about Saturday at lunchtime, I said, where's Will? And Chuck said, young Chuck says, I think he's in the basement. And I said, what is he eating?
Thank you so much.
And he said, I don't know what he's eating. He said, I just know he's down there working on his car. So, of course, I went down and rescued him and gave him something to eat. Brought him up to get him something to eat. You know. And I said, well, you know, we do have a bed you can sleep in. So he said, well, if I get tired, I will. He said, I'll. But you know, I would be remiss if I didn't say what Sheila has meant to me since Charlie was gone. And I mean, she has been my rock. And they didn't come tonight because Bob is really, really very afraid of COVID. And Sheila has COPD. And I think mostly it's because he's so protective of her, because the last thing she needs to do is to get exposed to this sort of thing. She just really doesn't need. But Bob wrote this, and I'll read this to you. Our friendship with Peggy and Charlie goes back about 60 years when our children were in nursery school together and Peggy and Sheila began carpooling. We lived around the corner from each other, so it was a perfect arrangement that led to a deep friendship and many wonderful times together. In fact, we racked our brains to come up with one very special time we shared with the Hammonds, and we realized there were way too many to pick just one. There were so many parties, birthday celebrations, and other special events we shared together. And there are lots of quiet times when we just sat together visiting in our home or theirs. In most recent years, we traveled together to exotic places: Paris, London, Amsterdam, Cedar Rapids.
Exotic places, right?
Yeah, exotic places. The European trips included spectacular river cruises, so many wonderful memories. We attended First Presbyterian Church together and served on various church boards and committees with Charlie. He was a natural leader and a caring soul in anything he undertook. He had a great sense of humor. Sheila and Charlie each declared that the other had a nose that was a bit too large for the face in which it was attached. Her birthday rolled around, a nose joke birthday card was always part of the celebration. Beautiful Sheila. God, her nose is perfect. We feel extremely fortunate to have known Charlie, and to be counted among his friends. We always enjoyed his company, and there were times when we needed his advice, his help, and he was always there for us. Our lives have been enriched immensely by his time among us, with love and appreciation for Charlie and all he meant to us. Bob and Sheila Brightweiser. The night that Charlie died, this pretty much tells you what Sheila's like.
Yeah.
The telephone rang, and I don't know how anybody knew it. I had just found out a few minutes ago. Sheila says, it was Sheila. She said, I'm on the way. I'm going to spend the night with you. It wasn't, do you want me to come over and spend the night with you? It's, I'm on the way.
I'm on the way.
I will spend the night with you.
I love that.
And she did. And from that day until this day, a year, Sheila has been there for me. And I know I could pick up the phone anytime and she would be there.
That's beautiful.
That's all, I'm free. Pat has something from Carol Whittemire, and Carol was a patient of Charlie's, and when Carol became a patient, she adopted our family. There has not been any occasion. Charlie, our grandson, just got married. She sent a wedding gift to Carol. Everybody who's ever done anything since Carol became Charlie's patient, Carol has done something. When Sharon got married, it was like her daughter got married almost. What patterns, all these sorts of things. She's a dear, sweet person, but she has married a man who is a wonderful man, and she's very, very happy, and it makes me so happy because Carol is happy. But he has bad health, and so she wrote this, and Pat's gonna read what she wrote.
You told me it was something short. I printed it out.
I'm sorry.
She
That's
sounds like a
okay.
preacher.
With Carol, that's short.
I know.
But listen,
I'm not a public speaker. Okay, this is by Carol. In 1985, when my husband and I considered initiating IVF treatment, he inherited both Dr. Hammond, already my physician for 10 years, and Dr. Anlian. Dr. Anlian was her uncle. As far as I was concerned, there were only two physicians in my world, my pediatrician father and Dr. Hammond. At the time, there were few IVF programs in the country, and Duke had the only program in North Carolina. I was upset my husband felt the need to vet anything related to my body, but in his infinite wisdom, Dr. Hammond pointed out to me that the man did have a vested interest. My husband wrote the Medical College of Virginia, Vanderbilt, and a third medical center I don't even remember regarding their programs. I will always treasure the handwritten note we received from Ann Colston Wentz at Vanderbilt. Quote, if you are fortunate enough to have Chuck Hammond accept you in Duke's Young program, you are more blessed than I can possibly explain to you in a reasonable response to your questions. IVF is a grueling physical, financial, and emotional commitment for any couple. The most important component of this new scientific medical procedure is the integrity of its director. Chuck Hammond excels in this column more than any physician in the country my husband and I know. Commit to the journey at Duke with Dr. Hammond. Please remember him to me, and I will pray we receive a birth or adoption announcement from you someday. Dr. Hammond developed a plan with us. When we were out of juice and out of money, Dr. Hammond gently showed us the future with our precious only son. Dr. Hammond was excited as our entire family when I became pregnant naturally with our daughter. Dr. Killam managed the pregnancy. I begged him not to tell Dr. Hammond I had morning, afternoon, evening, and nighttime sickness until delivery. Fast forwarding, in 2010, my son graduated college and married an amazing woman, of course with the Hammonds present. My daughter graduated high school and headed off to college, all major events in an elderly mother's life. However, I was a happy mom on all fronts except one. 2010 was the year Dr. Hammond retired. He had been my primary physician for 35 years. If I hadn't respected and loved Peggy so much, I never could have made it through 2010. I tried to forgive Dr. Hammond as I wanted to be happy for Peggy. As I credit my mother with many of my father's accomplishments, I praise Peggy for Dr. Hammond's accomplishments and the two of them for his uncompromising integrity and faith.
Wow.
I'm going to read this note that came from Lynn Phillip. Who do you Lynn Phillip? Okay. And Lynn is a nurse and she just felt like she could not be here tonight because she is really trying to do nothing except go to work because of her patients and exposing herself.
We understand.
But she sent this note that I'll just read while we're waiting, if y'all don't mind. So we won't be so late because I've got a 3-hour program.
Okay.
It says, Chuck, I know you are listening. I also know that you probably remember the details differently, but you were always too polite to say. However, you were not too polite to look at me, lower your head, and shake it. My husband Stan joined the Duke OBGYN prior to me. I was hired years later by CP and to join the GYN division. This was not my first rodeo. I had worked in gynecology at the University of Colorado and Sanford. Duke was desperate for a nurse clinician. I applied, CP and I negotiated, and detailed by mail. The last issue was parking. In the Morris garage, I had 2 adolescents that had to be run around to activities so that they could get into college at a later date. I had to rush from work, and it was a medical necessity for me to have best parking. Always said when I received an email from the CP saying you'll need to park in satellite parking, I reminded him we had a deal. He began writing to me without capitals. He said he tried and asked around, but there was no way to get into that preferred parking lot. I said, did you talk to Dr. Hammond about the parking? No. May I? By now the CP was already rethinking the entire job offer. So I wrote to Dr. Hammond and I asked him politely how I could get in the Morris garage. Of course, he suggested I speak with CP. It was a preferred lot with waiting list. He mentioned then that he was thrilled that I was joining the department. I wasn't so sure. So I wrote back, I reminded him that he was a powerful man. He wrote back, he was firm. Lynn, if I gave you a parking space, it would look like nepotism. I wrote back, so? He wrote back, well, exactly what do you want? My parking space? I wrote back, you park outside, I want covered parking. Thus began an email trail of humor with unwavering affection. I sent him valentines about parking spaces. I marked off a spot with chalk at my house that said Dr. Hammond's parking space when he and Peggy came over for dinner. We both loved it. Years of parking space jokes. It was the foundation of our relationship, whose only goal was to make each other smile. Well, we did try to one-up each other. Final note, my Morris parking space. Did I succeed in having Chuck give me a space? Of course not, but I did go back and work on CP. Chuck Hammond, he gave me so much more than a covered parking space. I adored him. He got some of the cutest cards you'll ever see. I mean, they were just about wanting a parking space, and she just didn't give up. But knowing Charlie, y'all know he didn't give up either.
Yeah, but you couldn't win those parking wars.
No, you don't. If Pat say you don't win those parking wars.
No,
And you would know, Pat.
I had a spot in PG1, and it took me like 7 years on the list to get it. And I had a good friend who worked in parking. And once I left, and I was only at Duke a couple of days a week, but I was at Duke Street the rest of the time. I still paid full parking so that I could have that spot for the 2 days a week I was there. And I finally gave it up because it was so expensive. And then once you give them up, you never get them back. They don't even have a waiting list anymore.
I think the floor is now open for other stories. We've heard some from the Hendersons. You may know some more. We'd love to have them. This is a night to remember and give thanks for the life of Charles B. Hammond. So if you have stories that fit that category, come on, guys. Come on. We're waiting for you.
I remember the first time when Peggy and I became friends on the tennis court.
What? On the what?
Tennis court.
Tennis court.
Tennis court. Yes, we were real good tennis court.
Oh yeah.
I never knew that.
We killed them all.
Chrissy Everett type.
No, yes. But we were together one night, and I said that I needed a doctor. We really had just moved to Durham, and he said, how did it happen? Anyway, at some point, he said, yes, you will. And he said, you want the best.
And what?
You want the best, won't you? And I said, yes. And he said,
wasn't modest.
No, he was modest, but he was modest in a really neat.
And he was the best, for sure.
Well, you know what? He was just telling you the truth.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
he
I
definitely
mean,
was.
this man was
But Jim,
world renowned for his work.
can you tell your story about him? Because that was,
I'm not getting it there.
Go ahead, Betty.
no, Jim's story was, it's something that happened at our house, which was so funny. Jim,
Well,
Well, we became very close to the Hammonds, and in some ways we're part of their extended family. And, knew Chuck and Sharon very well. And, one night we were having dinner at our home, and I don't remember too much about the night. I'm sure that the wine bottle had been opened, but we had dinner, and Charlie excused himself. We assumed this at the men's room.
Oh, that one switched over.
And
Sorry about that. Yeah.
we waited and waited, and
Oh, no, you didn't have one. I'm
Charlie
sorry. I
didn't
got it
come back.
backwards.
And we were a little,
I'm sorry.
a little alarmed.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think Peggy said, Chuck, why don't you go check on your father? And Chuck went back to our bedroom where there was also a guest bath, and there was Charlie asleep on our bed.
Say that again.
Charlie excused himself from the dinner table, and he was asleep on our bed. Which made me feel good. He felt right at home.
Yeah, right at home, that's right.
but you know, another night, we were at Sheila and Bob's, and Lauren comes running downstairs. She said, she had just come in, and she said, Dad, somebody's in my bed. Charlie said, what? I mean, somebody said, what? I guess it was Bob, right? But she said, what? She said, somebody's in my bed. So they were saying, Charlie was asleep in Lauren's bed. When we say Charlie slept around.
Oh, that goes back to the earlier story you told.
But I guess he was just tired and decided he'd go to sleep.
You know what? That was a great compliment that he felt comfortable enough
Yes.
to go to
Yeah,
sleep.
it was.
But you know, talking about Betty and I playing tennis, and this goes back to Charlie's sense of humor. One day we used to play on the ladder, whatever that was, at Hollow Rock, and so I was supposed to play somebody, and she was supposed to be pretty good, and you know, I shouldn't have even been playing this person, but anyway, I was to go out there, so I come in and I said, Charlie said, are you really going to do this? And I said, you know she's good. And I said, yeah, I know she's good. And he said, okay. And I said, and he said, what have you got in that bag? And he said, you got 2 tennis rackets. And I said, well, I thought if I went with 2 tennis rackets, that Peggy, darling, you can go with 2 machetes and it's not involved.
well, Peggy, remember the day that we came back from Williamsburg and it was snowing?
Oh, yeah, we thought they were going to kill us.
Oh, gosh, it was snowing so hard, and the closer we got to Durham, the harder the snow was. Jim had gone over to Charlie's and Peggy's, and they were sitting there waiting. We had a great time shopping, but it was an overnight. We've been gone for 2 days.
Yeah.
We didn't fare too well when we got
Yeah, they weren't real happy to get us in the snow.
Well, Peggy, I don't know whether you know this or not, but it was either Chuck or maybe it was one of his friends. The floorboard rusted out on the car,
Oh, yeah.
and they needed some good metal to replace it.
I'll take the.
Well, somehow a stop sign purpose. We don't know from where it came.
You could look down on this floorboard that says stop. But, I mean, yeah, that was a good one. We always wondered how he got that sign. They may still be looking for him.
He knows, I think.
I don't know. I don't know.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Well, I do remember before they started, though, you could look down and see the road to the bottom of the car. So it was a good time for Charlie. Charlie loved every minute of that. He just always had time for those boys, and they might show up at the door and say, got my car painted, I want Dr. Hammond to see it, you know. I'll get him. You know.
So great.
Can I get 2 more glasses of wine?
And then, at this point, I'm seeing more of the upspan than I am of Chuck and Charlie, because the upspan is delivering parts of the MG. I didn't know MG's had so many parts. That was fun, and Charlie loved every minute of it. That really.
Oh, that's funny.
I got him in trouble once.
Oh,
We
good.
were in, I think it was Orlando, where Charlie had a
Yeah.
meeting, and we had a condo a couple miles hotel where they were meeting.
The Hammonds and the Hendersons.
And we wanted to keep the car because we wanted to play during the day, so somebody had to get up and take him over to his meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody woke up in time, so I'm in my pajamas. I drive up to the front of this big hotel, all these doctors standing around talking to me. Charlie gets out, I'm in the car with pajamas. I wonder what they thought.
Well, and then, you know, another morning, Sharon drove him in. And I might have taken him one morning, and I'm sure every time saying, they must be saying in the hospital, what a man.
Great human beings. Dr. Hammond most definitely was. I saw him from a different angle probably from most of you all. Okay, and what stands out in my mind after thinking about Charlie and what I would say about him, because you all really, really knew him well. What I saw in him was that he wanted to make sure that I felt honored and not demeaned by being a pedicurist. I've got a lowly job according to society, but in my mind, I get to do the work of Jesus, as in washing people's feet. I have always taken that as an honor.
That's beautiful.
Okay? All right? I have always been honored. And so to work with someone from that angle, you get to see how they treat the lowly. Okay? So that's what I got to see. And he was always wanting to make sure that I felt would work with dignity, and he would help me, and we would talk, and we would share. And I'm trying to honor him. I always want to call him Dr. Hammond, but every now and then Charlie would slip out of my mouth. Okay. But I always struggled because I felt he was due that, because I saw he was trying to give me the same honor that I was trying to give him. We were stumbling over each other, trying to honor each other. And that's what I remember most about Dr. Hammond.
That's beautiful.
That is wonderful. Woo-hoo!
My therapist for 30 or 40 years.
That's right.
Only she goes in disguise as someone fixing my nails.
But we went through David and Sharon, so yeah, Peggy and I, we've shared a lot through the years. I say I was her bartender, you know, when you somebody, you just, yeah, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience, and thank you, Peggy, for having me here tonight.
It's great.
And Chuck used to house sit for us. And Lucy the cat drove him crazy.
What'd you say? I couldn't hear you.
Chuck used to house sit for us. Little Chuck, not Big Chuck. Big Chuck was Charlie. Yeah, I said that once before, and somebody said, Dr. Hammond house sits for you?
Nearly knew, and you said, but she said, well, didn't she say, well, he's my doctor, but I would never. But that was like Saturday at lunchtime when, you know, I called Charlie Charlie. People at the hospital,
Call him Chuck.
like Jim,
We called him
called him
Charlie.
Charlie. So, but everybody that, you know, that he had known with me, practically called him Charlie. And then one Saturday and he was in Boy Scouts and he was with a lot of young men, and the telephone rang about lunchtime on Saturday, and this voice said, may I speak to Chuck, please? And I said, well, I said, he spent the night with a friend last night. I said, but I'm expecting him home about noon. To which he says, well, this is Dr. Hanwerger at the hospital. I said, wait a minute.
We'll get the other person.
And I said, he is here, and thank goodness it was. And, oh yeah, you know. But you know, if I hadn't caught that, can't you hear him at the hospital saying, "Boy, the Hammonds was really good."
Or you said he's at a friend's house doing his homework.
His wife said he was at a friend's house last night, but I caught it in time, so I'll never forget that.
That's good.